Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Meso. Today we're going to continue the series. Is that an analog in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? And today we're going to be going over the Bandai WonderSwan core, getting it set up, talking about the best games to play, reviewing it, and talking about the experience you're going to have once you follow this tutorial. And I do obviously have a Bandai WonderSwan, the Swan Crystal in fact, and it's really fun to see how it compares against the Analogue Pocket hardware. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But the Bandai WonderSwan is not common hardware, it is quite expensive, and unless you do a screen modification like the one that is on mine, you're going to get a lot better experience out of the Analogue Pocket. Now at the top you're going to need two BIOS files. It's going to be bw.rom and color.rom. That's going to be for the Bandai WonderSwan and the WonderSwan Color. They do have two different BIOS files, so to play all of the games you're going to need both of those. And I will show you exactly where those are going to go on your Analogue Pocket microSD card in just a moment. You're going to see we have two types of ROMs, and I have all these games in my collection. .WSC and .WS. That's going to be for WonderSwan and WonderSwan Color. If you set the core up correctly by this guideline, you'll see that we have no issues, it'll auto-detect. I'm just going to go ahead and unzip some games, so we have some English translations as well. Because the WonderSwan has so many good English translated games, it's going to be awesome to play on the go with Pocket. So you'll see here that I have all the files I need from bw.rom all the way down to the last file in the file menu. We're going to go ahead and copy all of those over to the appropriate location within our microSD card for Analogue Pocket. So we'll go ahead and copy, we'll navigate over to our microSD, and we're going to go into the assets folder at the top. That is where we're going to put everything that we need to get this core up and running. You'll see if we scroll down into the menu, we're going to go ahead and go all the way down to W, because obviously this is the WonderSwan, and you will see here we have a folder common. We're going to double click that to get into the common folder, and you'll see I already have my BIOS file set up from a previous iteration of this. If they're not there, you're going to go ahead and copy them over, or you can use the updater to obtain them as well. I'll show you that in just a moment. But you'll see I just skipped these two files here because I already have the BIOS files taken care of. Just be aware that no BIOS files for the WonderSwan core means absolutely nothing is going to play. And if you haven't already set this up, you want to go ahead and run Pocket Updater. That'll pull down the necessary files you need as well. And if you haven't set up a microSD card yet, I will leave a link in the description below to the tutorial that shows you how to do that. Because if you actually haven't run at least one of the updaters, and I use Pocket Updater, then you're not going to even have the WonderSwan core or any of the folder structure. I'm assuming you've already gotten to that point in time if you're watching this video, but if you haven't, the link is down below. But now that we have all the files copied over to our microSD card where we need them, we can go into OpenFPGA, and you're going to see all the different menus we have here. It isn't a console, it is under handhelds, and this seems to trip a lot of people up, so just think about the hardware you're using. And the good thing is, because it's alphabetized, WonderSwan is the last core we have the option for, and even though it says WonderSwan Color, this is for the WonderSwan as well. Be aware there's only one core, you can't change it over, so go into the menu and load up whatever game you want to start playing. Once you do that, if you follow the tutorial, you will have games launching, but we still have a lot of different setups to go through as far as all the different core options are concerned, as well as the controls, which can be quite tricky depending on what WonderSwan game you are playing, and I will get into that just in 1 second. But if you follow along, you're going to be playing one piece as well. Now in the core menu option, you're going to have controls, and you're going to see this looks completely different than you're used to seeing it. There's going to be a bunch of different options that they're going to be basically duplicated. That is because the WonderSwan has a lot of different buttons on it. You could hold this in a horizontal or vertical orientation, so you can bind different buttons depending on where they are on the actual WonderSwan hardware. You have an A and B button, those are easy, but then you have those two D-pads that basically mirror themselves. By default, whatever button you choose on your analog D-pad is going to mirror those exactly as it would on the actual hardware. Now you can choose the type of hardware you're using, but I recommend leaving this to auto. That way it will read the file extension on the ROM that you gave it from the games that you own, and it'll launch in. That's because there is WonderSwan that was a black and white system, and if you choose anything other than auto, you'll have to toggle this back and forth to make sure the games load. You can hit CPU turbo, and in my experience, none of the games on the WonderSwan seem to slow down all that much at all, so I leave that as is, and triple buffer is going to be enabled by default. I highly recommend leaving this on because the WonderSwan had a very strange refresh rate that you don't want to play around with. You can do frame blending, by default that's off, that's where I think it should be, and then you can see here we have the orientation, which is automatic right now. That is because some games on this are going to use the horizontal or vertical orientation. Rainbow Islands here is a vertical game, and it will automatically detect what type of game it is and set up the screen on your Analogue Pocket or on your dock the same way. You can flip the screen horizontal. Have no idea why that's a useful feature, but it is in there. That's the thing about the Bandai Wonderswan. It is set up completely different than most handhelds, and you do need to get used to that within the core. But once you actually get everything set up, get all the BIOS files in the right folders, get all your games included, and understand the hardware, you're going to 100% have a great time, because this is a spectacular core, and there is no real way to get video out of a Wonderswan without heavy modifications. I don't even know if anyone's ever done that yet. Leave me a comment down below if you know if they have. Do be aware that this is one of the cores that does have save states. Not all of them do, but if you hold down the analog home button and push up at the same time, you're going to go ahead and save a state wherever you are in the game. This is definitely useful for this core because a lot of the games are quite difficult. You'll see here, I'm just going to go ahead, play around a little bit, and then I will reload that memory. It's under memories. If you see here, there's save states, and it'll show you all the save states for a particular game. You can go ahead and load them, hit confirm, and it will bring you right back to the place where you made that save state. It's an awesome feature, and it's super useful because when I say some of the games on the Wonderswan are quite difficult, I 100% mean that. If we move over to Daimaki Amura here, this game, this entire series, the whole Ghouls and Ghosts franchise, is absolutely brutal in difficulty, and actually getting continues and checkpoints in this game is quite hard. So I'll make a save state where we're safe, and you're going to see here I walk right off into a pit. That was my own fault. I was being stupid. Well, it was really for the video to show you a death. I'll go ahead and load that save up, and now I can jump right back into the game. This is going to save you a lot of time and a lot of frustration when you are playing, outside of the fact that the game can just put you in a near unwinnable state, so you are going to die more than once. That's just how these games work. Now to load a new game, we just go into load cartridge and pick whatever game we want. And because we left both the system type and screen orientation as auto, it's going to automatically detect it's a Bandai Wonderswan game, not color, and that it uses the vertical screen orientation. So Rainbow Islands here is going to load up onto your pocket or on your television with the dock exactly in the format it should need. If you play around with any of these settings, that might not be the case, so definitely leave both of those to auto. But it's so much fun to get these horizontal or vertical games on the Wonderswan. They had two different orientations, and a vertical game like Rainbow Island just kind of shows off the power of what the hardware could do from a design perspective. Now granted, that is going to mean that if you're using the Pocket handheld mode, you're not going to get the biggest screen in the world, but honestly, the screen on the Wonderswan wasn't gigantic either, so it's not that big of a deal that you don't get that massive screen. It wasn't big in real life, and this is honestly a better way to play the Wonderswan. For the cost of a Pocket, it's going to cost you basically the same for a Wonderswan with that screen mod. But again, just remember that you do need to play around with the controls a little bit, because some games do something different in some instances when you go to the vertical orientation. And I'm just going to show you here one more time on the actual hardware in and of itself. The controls are just totally different than what you're used to seeing on the Pocket. So you need to just orient yourself to what those different controls are and use this video and the buttons on screen just to show you where things need to be. But if you do all that, you're going to get all the vertical games working perfectly fine, all of the color versus the black and white games working perfectly fine, and in a lot of ways with the Analogue Pocket's amazing screen or using the dock, seeing these games in black and white, something maybe you've never done before. This core is incredible. It works perfectly. There's a tiny bit of screen tearing every once in a while, but that's down to the weird refresh rate of the Wonderswan versus a standard NTSC television signal. There's really not much you can do about that, so if you do see any screen tearing or other blips like that, just be aware it's kind of just how the refresh rates work. But the best part is there's so many great games on this system, including these remakes of Final Fantasy that were always in only Japanese, never released to the West, but fans have come in and translated them for you. That way on your Analogue Pocket you can play some amazing Final Fantasy remakes in full English on the go, come home, dock them, do whatever you want. It's going to be an absolutely spectacular time. But if you follow the steps in this tutorial, you get your BIOS files, you get your games where you need them, and you follow along with all of the different core settings, you're going to be playing every single Wonderswan game you want, whether it's color and black and white, whether it's horizontal or vertical, on your Pocket, and it's going to be an absolutely spectacular experience. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I'll be happy to help. Sure that I'll have another analog tutorial next week, and I'll have videos throughout the week. But if you've never played WondersWan and you're wondering if you should, you definitely should. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.